Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Hello everyone, welcome to Lukman IAS. In this series we are discussing the previous year question of UPSC prelims examination, and today we are going to take questions from Indian economy. So now let us see the topics from where we have taken question for the day. So we have taken questions from a topic which is known as equalization levy. Then we have taken another question which is with reference to terms related to the business cycle. Then we will understand about capital output ratio. Then we have taken another question, it is from demographic dividend. Okay. Then the last question is based on finance commission. So apart from discussing the solution to these questions, we are also going to understand about various issues like these, okay, from the economy perspective, and we are also going to analyze how easy or difficult a particular question is, okay. So these topics are part of the prelim syllabus that says economic and social development, sustainable development, poverty, inclusion, demographics, social sector initiatives, etc. Okay. So this is the exact syllabus that is mentioned in the prelims paper for UPSC. Okay. So now let us take the first question for the day. Okay. So this question was asked by UPSC in the year of 2018. Okay, 2018. So if I talk about this particular question, I would rate this question to be easy question. Okay, it is an easy question. Why this is an easy question? Because this particular topic was in news. Okay, this particular topic was in news that particular year multiple times. Okay, it was in news. So like it is based on current affair. This question is based on current affair. Okay, and it is relevant for Indian economy. So let us read this question, then we are going to answer this question. Okay, so the question says, with reference to India's decision to levy equalization tax of 6% on online advertisement services offered by non-resident entities, which of the following statements is or are correct? Okay, here we need to understand like you know, if you have a business over here and like if you are into advertisement business, okay, for example, like if you know advertise your things through some newspapers or through some third party persons, okay, you are paying some kind of taxes also along with it. Okay, and the agency where you are getting your you know ads to be published, they are in turn you know paying taxes to the government. But the same thing is was not applicable to you know non-resident entities. For example, if we talk about Facebook, if we talk about Google, okay, if we talk about you know certain other you know like social media intermediaries, okay, for example Facebook, Google, we have Instagram, okay. So there are various agencies in India who get their you know advertisements published in these you know social intermediaries or through these channels. But the thing is, these social intermediaries like Facebook, Google, okay, Amazon, or like if we talk about you know Instagram, these do not have their principal location of business in India. So where are their businesses located? Their businesses are located abroad, and mostly these you know businesses are located in the United States of America. Okay, so when people are you know getting their ads you know being advertised by these agencies, so these agencies do not pay. Okay, they did not pay taxes to the government. But at the same time, there are, for example, Indian Express, the Hindu newspaper. Okay, if some agencies are getting their ads published through these you know newspapers, so these newspaper intermediaries, they are paying taxes to the government. So what was happening? There was a disparity in the taxation system when it comes to digital you know ads. So to bring equalization, to bring you know like level playing field in the advertisement section, the government of India has applied this particular thing which is known as equalization tax. Over here, what was the case? Let's consider you have a business, okay, in India, and you want some advertisement to be done through these you know channels like Facebook, Amazon, or you know Google, like that. So you can you know give your ads you know through these intermediaries, But the thing is, at the time of giving the tax, you have to, like if the amount exceeds 1 lakh rupees, you have to pay 6%, okay, equalization levy to the government. Like, you know, you don't have to pay the all the amount to these intermediaries. 6% of these amount will be, you know, paid by you to the government, okay. That is known as equalization levy, okay. Equalization levy is a direct tax, okay. It is a direct tax that the intermediaries or a person who is getting the ads published, they have to pay to the government. It is a form of direct tax, okay. So here what is happening, this is a question with reference to equalization levy. It was in news multiple times that year. So now let us try to read these statements, and then we will answer this question, okay. It says we have to find out the correct statements. Statement 1 says it is introduced as part of Income Tax Act, okay. This statement is incorrect, okay, because this equalization levy or equalization tax was not introduced as a part of, you know, income tax, okay. It was introduced in the Finance Act of 2016, okay. It was introduced in the Finance Act of 2016, okay, and it is a separate tax, okay. What kind of tax it is? It is a separate tax, okay. It is not a part of income tax. So statement 1 is incorrect. If 1 is incorrect, we can eliminate option A and option C. Now let us see whether second is correct or incorrect. Second statement says non-resident entities that offer advertisement services in India can claim a tax credit in their home country under the double taxation avoidance agreements. This is also incorrect, because like earlier what used to happen, these non-resident entities, okay, they did not pay the taxes in India, okay, and at the same time they did not pay taxes in their home jurisdiction as well, because they used to say that the profit was not generated in this particular territory, it was generated outside, okay. So that's why, you know, they were not paying any income tax on these, you know, advertisements in the country where they are, you know, getting the ads from, like India, and at the home country like United States of America. So that's why it is a separate tax, and at the same time, like, you know, these like non-resident entities, they cannot, you know, claim tax credit in their home country for you know, under the double taxation avoidance agreement, because like they were not paying taxes over here. So that's why both these statements are incorrect. Hence correct answer for this question is option D. In your free time you should, you know, read about recent developments related to, you know, equalization levy. India is not the first country that has applied this particular tax. There are other jurisdictions also, for example European Union, okay, they have also imposed similar taxes, okay, for the goods, for, you know, for certain kind of online intermediaries, okay. So you should read about it. It is an important topic. It is a current going topic as well, okay. So with this, now let us move to the next question for the day. Okay, so this question was asked by UPSC in the okay. So this question was asked by UPSC in the year of 2010. Okay, it was asked in the year of 2010. So now let us read this question. It says, in the context of Indian economy, consider the following pairs. On one side they have given some terms like meltdown, recession, slowdown. On the other side they have, you know, given the most appropriate description. So we have to find out which of them are correctly matched, okay. So if I talk about this particular, you know, topic, so I would say it is not an easy topic, like you may rate it to be, you know, moderate topic. It comes under the category of moderate to difficult. It is not that difficult also, because like people who read economy, so they'll be able to answer it easily. So it is a moderate type of topic, okay. This topic requires that you should have some understanding about these terms that are frequently in news with reference to economy, okay, like meltdown, recession, slowdown. If you precisely know what is the definition of these topics, and if you precisely understand how, in what context these terminologies are used, you will be able to answer this question, okay. So one thing is they are talking about meltdown. What is meltdown? Generally meltdown happens when the stock prices are going down, okay. When the stock prices in the stock market is going down, what happens? The economy faces some kind of meltdown situation, okay. So stock prices may go down for different businesses, the stock prices may go down for different banking sectors. So that's why it is correctly matched. Meltdown means fall in the stock prices. And if we talk about the second topic, it says recession. What is recession? Recession means, okay, recession means fall in GDP, okay. Generally, like recession means slowdown in the economy, and it is associated with fall in GDP in consecutive this quarters, okay, fall in GDP. So recession is precisely associated with fall in GDP. It is not associated, although it is associated with fall in growth rate, but how do we measure? We measure in terms of GDP, okay. So that's why second is incorrectly matched, okay, it is not correctly matched. If you talk about slowdown, slowdown means fall in the growth rate, okay. Economy is slowing down, it means like growth rate is decreasing. Let's consider the Indian economy is growing at a rate of 8% per year. Next year the Indian economy grows at 6% per year. So it is fall in the growth rate, okay, fall in the growth rate. So this is also incorrect, okay. So second and third are they are just shuffled, but first one is correct. You will be able to answer this question if you know precisely what do we mean by these terms, okay. So that's why option A is the right answer for this question, okay. Having understood this, now let us take another question for the day, okay. So this is the third question. Let us read this question, and this question was asked by UPSC in the year of 2018, okay. So let us read this question. It says, despite being a high saving economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in output due to, okay. So this question is of applied nature. Applied nature means you should know about a particular situation and its consequence, okay. So it is an applied nature question. I would rate this question to be moderate to difficult, okay. For some people it may be difficult, for some people it may be moderate, okay. So let us try to answer this question, okay. Here they are asking that, like despite being high savings, okay, in an economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in the output, okay. Capital formation may not result in significant increase in output. So what can be the reason? One of the reason is they have written weak administrative machinery, okay. So like we are not talking about political situation, okay, we are talking about an economic phenomena. Second thing is illiteracy. Illiteracy is also directly not associated with this thing. Third thing is high population density, okay. So see, like this is an economic situation. There may be economies where they have high population density, and at the same time they have high savings and high growth rate, okay. But the thing is, this is not directly associated with the population. The correct answer for this question is high capital output ratio, okay. So many of you may feel that like high capital output ratio, like what is capital output ratio? Many of you may have a question like what is capital output ratio? So capital output ratio talks about the relationship between savings and the output, okay. So it talks about relationship between the level of investment made in an economy and the consequent increase in GDP, okay. So on one hand, if we are investing in an economy, if we are investing, okay, so it talks about relationship between investment and output in an economy, okay. So this is known as capital output ratio. If we have high capital output ratio, what do we mean by this? Means like you are making high investment, okay, but the output is low, okay, output is low. So high capital output ratio means high input is giving lesser output, Low capital output ratio means you are giving input less but like output is high. Okay, so this is the thing. So here what is happening, high capital output ratio happens when like we have high savings in an economy, but the thing is the capital formation is not leading to increase in the output. Okay, so this is the thing. So capital output ratio talks about the capital required for producing 1 unit of output. Okay, so like if you are trying to produce 1 additional unit of output, what is the capital that you need? That is known as capital output ratio. Okay, so this is a moderate level of question. If you don't know about what is capital output ratio, you should try to find out its definition. You should try to find out its examples. You will be able to answer similar questions in future. Okay, so with this, now let us take another question for the day. Okay, so this question was asked by UPSC in the year of 2011. Let us read this question. It says, India is regarded as a country with demographic dividend. This is due to, okay. So here we need to understand what do we mean by demographic dividend. Okay, so if we talk about economic term, on one part we have demography, then we have dividend. Okay, so what is demography? Demography talks about the population, the composition of population. Let's consider in Indian economy. So what is the proportion of population that is in the age, old age? What is the proportion of population that is in working age? What is the population of, proportion of population that is in the, school going age, or like they are dependent. So when we talk about demography, demography talks about, composition of population. It means, in simple terms, it means composition of a population. Okay, it means composition of a population. If we talk about dividend, dividend means a kind of profit, a kind of, favorable thing, like something that is suitable, okay, something that is profitable. So when we talk about demographic dividend, means like are you able to get benefit out of the proportion of population in an economy, that is known as demographic dividend. So when are we going to get demographic dividend? We are going to get demographic dividend only when the the composition of population in an economy is of working age. Means like let's consider there is an economy, and in this economy there are 100 people, and out of 100 people let's consider 98 people, okay, or let's take a practical measure. Let's consider 90% of the people in the in that particular economy are of working age. So they will be working and they will be giving benefit to the economy. So they will lead to increase in the growth of the economy. And at the same time, if we talk about another population, okay, in this population like 40% are children, okay, 40% are children. Children means they are not in working age. Then we have 30% who are old age, who are of old age. Then we have rest 30% who are of working age, okay, who are of working age. So what will happen in this case? Okay, the people who are of working age, they will be working, and rest 70% of the population are dependent on 30% of people. Okay, so this particular economy, okay, the second type of economy will not be giving dividend of the population composition. And at the same time, if I talk about this economy that has 90% of the people in the working age, so most of these people will be working, and the people like who are dependent, they comprises only 10%. They may be some proportion of that may be children, some other proportion will be in old age. So what will happen because of it? Because of it, this particular economy will grow at a rate much higher than this particular economy. Okay, this is known as demographic dividend. Okay, now having understood what do we mean by demographic dividend, let us try to answer this question. It says it's high population in the age group below 15 years. This is wrong. Okay, so if there is an economy that has population, highest percent of that population is below 15 years. So are these population working? No, these populations comprises of children and they are dependent on the working age population. So this is not going to be a demographic dividend. If we talk about second B option, it says it's high population in the age group 15 to 64 years. Yes, this is right. Right, in an economy where the population ratio, higher proportion of the population is between the 15 to 64 years, they will be in working age. Okay, so most of them will be working. So it can be considered as demographic dividend. Let us see third option also. It says it's high population in the age group below 65 years. Okay, so it may be below 65 years, but like so this may correlate to this particular situation, A situation. So that's why this is also not correct. Fourth is it's high total population. Okay, so high total population does not give you benefit. Okay, if we talk about there are various economies around the world. If we talk about Japan, okay, so most of its population are in the old age group. So now that population is not in the demographic dividend situation. Earlier they were, but now they are not in that situation. Okay, so that's why correct answer for this question is option B. So having understood this, now let us take another question, which is question number 5. Okay, this question was asked by UPSC in the year of 2015. Let us read this question. It says, with reference to the 14th Finance Commission. Okay, so they did not ask a question in general with reference to Finance Commission, because that will come under Indian polity section. Okay, Finance Commission. Now they are asking a question with reference to 14th Finance Commission. 14th Finance Commission. Okay, which of the following statements is or are correct? Okay, so like if I have to rate this question will be considered as an easy question. Okay, it will be considered as an easy question, because whenever a Finance Commission releases a report, okay, you find that particular the excerpts of that report or various things associated with that Finance Commission report in the newspapers. So this is a topic which is mostly found in the current affairs. Okay, so if a question is being asked, you will be able to answer this question easily. So it is an easy question. Okay, easy question with related to Finance Commission. Let us read this question. It says it has increased the share of states in the central divisible pool from 32% to 42%. Okay, so let us understand what is a Finance Commission. Okay, so a Finance Commission is a commission that recommends the government of India, okay, that recommends like what proportion of the total taxes that it is collecting should be shared with the states. Okay, so who constitutes a Finance Commission? A Finance Commission is constituted, okay, if we talk about Finance Commission, it is constituted by the President of India. It is constituted by the President of India. Okay, and Finance Commission is a constitutional body. Okay, it is a constitutional non-permanent body. Okay, it is constituted by the President of India. It has 5 members. Okay, and at the same time, okay, the constitution, the President of India must constitute a Finance Commission after expiration of every 5 years. Okay, so he constitutes a Finance Commission after expiration of every 5 years. Okay, so after expiration of every 5 years, the President of India must constitute a Finance Commission. So this question is with reference to the 14th Finance Commission. We will understand about it, and we will also understand. So the thing is, President of India constitutes a Finance Commission having 5 members, and he constitutes Finance Commission after expiration of every 5 years. And what is the term of reference of the Finance Commission? That is decided by the President. The President decides the term of reference, like what are the things that the Finance Commission has to look. Okay, and after then the Finance Commission gives a report, And so what happens, like if we talk about, you know, there are certain taxes, okay, that are being collected by the state government, but like it is being levied by the central government. So the money finally comes to the central government. So there are multiple type of taxes that are being collected by, you know, state governments, but it comes to the central government. So finally the central government will have to, you know, pay the share of the state governments also. So that what percentage of the total share, okay, should be shared with the state government is decided by the finance commission, okay, that is the role of the finance commission. So what happens, on one side we have central government, okay, on one side we have central government, okay. So finance commission recommends what proportion of the total tax that the central government has collected on a particular, you know, subject matter where like devolution you know, is applicable. So what proportion of that, you know, tax is to be shared with the state government, okay, is to be shared with the state government. So this type of devolution where the fund is coming from the central government to different state governments, that is known as vertical devolution, okay. We call it to be vertical devolution, okay, we call it to be vertical devolution. And at the same time the finance commission also recommends like how, let's consider central government is collecting 100 rupees and let's consider it shares 42 rupees with the state governments, okay. Does it go equally to all states? No, okay, it does not go equally to all states, okay. So for that purpose the finance commission also recommends, okay, the how the horizontal devolution should happen. Horizontal devolution means out of these 42 rupees, okay, so what, like, you know, what proportion of this thing, what percentage of this thing to go will go to a particular state. Let's consider we have, you know, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Mizoram, Manipur, you know, Manipur, we have various states. Many of these states have, you know, different population composition, they have different, you know, geographical territory, they have, you know, different rate of tax collection. So money cannot be given equally to all states. There are certain states that require more money, there are some states where we have to give lesser money, okay. So that is known as horizontal devolution, when we are, you know, giving money to different states at a different level, okay. So that horizontal devolution is also decided by the finance commission, okay. So this is just one part of the discussion. After then we are going to continue the discussion, but first let us try to answer this question. It says it has increased the share of the states in the central divisible pool from 32% to 42%. Yes, this is correct with reference to the 14th Finance Commission. If we talk about second statement, it says it has made recommendations concerning sector specific grants. This is incorrect, okay. Why this is incorrect? Because like this, like the 14th Finance Commission did not, you know, recommend measures concerning sector specific grants, okay. So these things was in news that particular year when the report of the Finance Commission came, okay. So this is the thing. So correct answer for this question is option A. Apart from this, if we talk about the 14th Finance Commission, who was the chairman of the 14th Finance Commission? The chairman of the 14th Finance Commission was Y.V. Reddy, okay. Who is Y.V. Reddy? Okay, he was, okay, he was the former governor of the Reserve Bank of India. He was the former governor of the Reserve Bank of India, and he was the, you know, chairman of the 14th Finance Commission. And apart from this, okay, apart from this, if we talk about horizontal devolution of the 14th Finance Commission, okay, let us discuss how the horizontal devolution was decided, okay. So the 14th Finance Commission has said, okay, 14th Finance Commission has said that for income distance 50% weightage must be given, okay. Then population, (1971), Okay, so here 17.5% weightage is to be given. Then population, 2011 census, 10% weightage is to be given. Then if we talk about area, okay, area, what is the weightage? It is 15%, okay, area should be given a weightage of 15%. Then forest cover, okay, it should be given a weightage of 7.5%. Okay, so let us understand what is this. Many of you may not have understood. Okay, so here I told you a structure. On one hand we have central government, on other hand we have various state governments. Okay, so this is state government number 1. Similarly we have, you know, all 28 state governments. Okay, so central government will have to devolve 42%, okay, as per the recommendation of the 14th Finance Commission. Okay, they have to devolve 42% of the you know, total taxes that it collected to different states. But how these funds are going to be, you know, distributed among these states? So that particular formula is decided by the 14th Finance Commission itself. Okay, so 14th Finance Commission has given a formula with reference to the horizontal devolution. This is known as horizontal devolution. Okay, so how these funds are divided between different states. For that, the 14th Finance Commission has said that income distance should be given a weightage of 50%. What is income distance? Income distance is, let's consider there is a state. Okay, so let's consider there are many states. Okay, Karnataka is a state that what Karnataka does, Karnataka has the highest, you know, tax collection. So this particular state is able to, you know, generate huge revenue. But like there is another state on the other part, let's consider Bihar. Okay, so I'm just giving you an example, don't take it otherwise. Okay, so Bihar collects, let's consider only 20% of what the Karnataka, you know, generates as a revenue for the government. Okay, so there is income distance. On one side there is a state that, you know, gets huge revenue from the taxation. On the other side there are states that gets, you know, lesser revenue from taxation. Okay, so you know, like there are certain state taxes, there are central taxes. I am talking about state taxes. Okay, so there is some difference between what the tax collection by Karnataka and Bihar. So this is known as income distance. Okay, this is known as income distance. Similarly, for calculating income distance, what they will do, they will calculate the income made by the state which has highest income, and they will, you know, take the reference of other states that have income lesser than that. So they will calculate the income distance and they give 50% weightage for that particular thing. Then every state has different population. Okay, so they have included data from the 1971 census, and so as per the population data of 1971, they have given a weightage to it as 17.5%, and they have also included the most recent, you know, census, which is 2011 census, and they have included 10% weightage for it. If we talk about area, for area, like, you know, every state have different geographical area. So geographical area has also been given a reference, because like if we talk about Goa, Goa is a very small state as compared to Uttar Pradesh, which is the largest state in India. Okay, so like there are differences. So area has also been included as a criteria for horizontal devolution. Similarly, forest cover. Why they have included forest cover? Because they want to incentivize those states that have more forest cover, because they want to promote the concept of ecological conservation. Okay, so that's why they have, you know, included forest cover as well. So these were the, you know, recommendation, or this is the formula that was given by the 14th Finance Commission for horizontal devolution. Okay, similarly, recently the 15th Finance Commission report also came, and that 15th Finance Commission report gives a different, you know, horizontal devolution formula, and its recommendations are little different as compared to 14th Finance Commission. So you should also read the most recent, information related to the 15th Finance Commission. Okay, so that's all that I had to discuss with you for the day. Thank you so much everyone for attending this session. I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.